You're listening to Underworld on the Ghost Radio Network.
Ghost Radio Australia.
Listen.
Mountains. The unexplained. Synchronicity. EVP.
So why are you?
I heard that.
Absolutely fascinating.
What are Midnights? Is it real? What do you think?
I love you.
The unseen.
I'm alright.
1111. Who or what are mutilated cattle?
Listen.
Poltergeists. Your stories. Your experiences. Listen close.
Charmaine Wilson is back again with us tonight, people. Charmaine is a psychic medium who was peer voted Australia's best in 2005. She's joined us again tonight for another chat before she heads off for a series of seminars and meetings in New Zealand. Welcome back, Charmaine.
Hi, Lia, how are you?
Good. What's the New Zealand thing about?
Well, actually, that was a bit of a fluke, that one. I had, in 2006, I predicted I was going to New Zealand, and then, as you know, last year my mum died, and I thought, well, that New Zealand's not going to happen. And strangely, as the universe does work, I was doing a show in Maroochydore with the Oz Mediums, and there was a New Zealand medium in the audience, and he approached me by email and asked me if I'd like to go on a tour of New Zealand with him. He would arrange everything, and he just wanted me there with the international act, and I said, okay. That's how it happened.
That's got to give you a bit of a buzz to be picked out from another medium in the audience.
Well, that's exactly right, because he liked the way that I was. He liked the way that I was a bit, very Australian. Whereas, Ezio and Jason McDonald, he goes with his Hawaiian thing, you know what I mean? And Ezio is a very corporate-like type of medium, whereas I'm your girl next door type of thing, and that's what he picked me out for, was because if anyone can represent Australia, apparently I can.
Well, yeah, I agree.
You can't get much more Aussie than me.
And it makes you very approachable as well, and I'm glad that he's picked up on that and has asked you to experience this with him.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. It's not far to go now, so yeah, it's going to be really good because, just for one, it's really weird, but every time I've done a reading on a particularly a Maori person, what's happened, and it's with the names, because Maoris have these most unusual names, as you know, and I'll be doing a reading, and I'll say, who's Ripata, or whatever, and they'll go, oh yes, this is my great-grandfather, blah, 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 and I just think that's amazing. I honestly, I'm a bit of a past life girl myself, and I honestly feel I must have had a past life connection as a Maori, because I do seem to be able to pick up their names very, very easily.
And that,
so I'm quite looking forward to this.
And it kind of gives you that extra verification that you need as the medium, because, I'm not sure I'd be able to rattle off New Zealand names, none are stored in my head, so you must wonder where they're coming from, and it must give good verification to the people getting the reading.
Oh, absolutely, because like as a medium, when you stand in front of them, if you get a name like, say, William in Australia, it's so common. But when you're doing a reading for Maori and you get something like, I can't even think of one now, say Rata. And you say, the name is like Rata, and they say, yep, that's my grandmother. You think, that's a grandmother's name? Anyway, and that's what, it gives you a lot of verification, because it makes you understand that you're spot on in your skills, and you're spot on in your ability, and not only that, because sometimes as a medium it can get a little bit like day-to-day stuff, but when there's some any medium will tell you there's some readings that really make you sit back and go, wow, wow, this spirit world's a living thing, even though we believe it, sometimes we need to have a little bit of a bolt of lightning to remind us, and readings like that, when you get these strange, unusual names, are really, really good.
Well, tell us about that. Tell us a time when you've sat back and gone, wow, that, even for me, that was seriously cool.
Well, just recently, actually, over here on the East Coast, I do a seminar, and it's a healing seminar. It's for people who are having trouble dealing with the loss of a loved one.
Yep.
And basically we go through really, the meaning of life is probably the best way to describe it. And when we understand life, and we can understand that we're all here for lessons and everything. But anyway, there was a lady at this seminar, and halfway through the seminar, I hadn't ever given her a reading during the day at this point, because during the seminars, the spirits will pop in and just interrupt as they do, because they don't have manners over there.
Yeah.
And they just don't. And there's this young fellow came through, and he was, I was quite blown away, because he took me into trance, and that, when they take you into trance, it means you no longer have control over anything. Mm. And when he took me into trance, it was almost like I was him. Now, this poor young man, unfortunately, he was killed in a road rage accident.
Oh, wow. And
only 17, a bit of a larrikin, you know what they're like.
Yeah.
He was with his mates, and he was drinking the car. He probably shouldn't have been drinking at 17. Mm. And these other older people started to come up behind their car and started ramming their car. Anyway, so the young fella, being the larrikin, he threw his empty bourbon can into the window. With that, the other car pulled over, and they proceeded to, bash the living hell out of this young fellow. And eventually the young fellow reached for a knife, and what happened was the knife was taken off him, and he was actually stabbed 6 times and died.
Jeez.
I know, very dramatic, very dramatic. But what was even more amazing for me was I saw the whole damn thing in full colour, but I saw it as if I was him.
Wow.
I was able to give this woman the perpetrator's name. I said I could actually see the tattoos on the man's arm as he was doing the lunge type of thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
This young fellow. I couldn't work out what was happening, and every time, because it was thick stab wounds, as I said, and I just go, oh, I said, oh, and it just felt like I was being impacted, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So it was quite amazing. It was really, I said, oh, I've lost my breath, I can't breathe. And then I said, this is it. I was able to describe everything that was going on, her son in detail, but like that actual thing only took about, maybe 10, 20 seconds.
Wow.
But the thing is that the actual scene, when that happens, it's like you have absolutely no control over yourself anymore, but he was showing me through his eyes what happened, and it's just phenomenal. It was a very deep reading. There's a lot of work to be done with that family yet, which I will continue to work with them on a one-on-one basis. But, yeah.
How did that make you feel, having, there must have been some kind of soul permission, I would imagine, for that to even have taken place?
Yeah, well, you see, it doesn't, see, with me, they know that the closer I can get to the actual event, the more real it's going to be for their people, and the more healing it's going to be. Mm. And, you see, because I don't have any fear of the spirit world or fear of anything in the spirit world, I know that what they're trying to do is not for their benefit, it's for their family's benefit.
Yep.
And I have agreed to be their helper.
Right.
And because I have agreed to be their helper, it doesn't matter what they put me through. To me, it's the most fascinating thing in the world, to be honest. When I do the trans stuff, which has only been happening in the last probably 3-4 months,
yeah,
it just started, because always remember, I've only been into this industry less than 5 years. It's my 5th year coming up. So I expect in another 5 years, I can't even imagine what this is going to be like for me, but just the last 3 or 4 months, this trans stuff's been happening a lot.
You seem very,
great. I love it.
You seem very driven with your healing or whatever, because I know you see what you do, and rightly so, your work is so important, and that's why you give so much of yourself to so many people, and really, Charmaine does. She's just like, and you seem very driven by being that connection between those who need healing and those who can heal, in this case, the young man, to try and show his family what happened.
Yeah, I am. The reason that I am, I suppose the main reason comes down to is because I have lost so many. Mm. But that would be the main reason, because, look, as a young 22-year-old when I lost my daughter, there were so many questions I had unanswered. Mm. There was so much I couldn't understand, and there was so much I couldn't get a grip on. And as you know, that ultimately led to alcohol addiction, which ultimately led to drug addiction. And, and there were so many things that happened in my life that was just the right person, driven by the spirits, if you like, to give me the right answers. I'm glad my life went that way, to be honest, because I wouldn't be the person I am now. And obviously I've handpicked this life to be where I am. Mm. But when I see someone struggling with something that's so simple, and it's just my goal to really make it as easily understandable as possible and as black and white as we can possibly do it, because the spirit world is very black and white. Too many people try to airy-fairy it up. And there's nothing worse than when you get a client that has a very simple black and white spirit there, and they've been to other psychics or mediums or whatever, and they've had all this airy-fairy stuff laid on them, and they're so confused that the work that's been done has actually done more damage. So my strive is to work through the spirit world in such a way where we don't confuse people, where people know that, yes, your dad is in spirit, he's okay. The lesson he came down to teach you was one of A, forgiveness, B, love, C, judgment, whichever it may be. He would love for you to learn from these lessons. He would love for you to grow from these lessons. And, you know, just because people don't understand that every death is a catalyst for change and every death is a catalyst to learn. And that's my main purpose, is to teach people that death is not the end, it's the beginning of a new life, and it's the beginning of a different set of thoughts, a different way of thinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and I think that's incredibly powerful. Death is a catalyst for change, and every death, that's wow.
It absolutely is, and we've got a choice of which way we go. We've got a choice of which way we grieve. And I think that's very important for people to know, because ultimately we are going to meet them again.
Yes.
You know, we are going to meet again. And and everything in me tells me that we're going to have more lives again. You see, what people mistake is that this life is it, this is the one. Well, actually, the life we're really having is the one that the soul's having. So we've really got to back the fun here, because our soul is our major life. Our soul is on an eternal journey. And our soul chooses other people to have their eternal journey with them, and they'll be in our cluster group. I'm getting a bit high up here.
No, you go for it. I was just thinking for the soul though. Do you think what the physical life is? What would it be like? A minute of its? Oh
yeah, a weekend.
Yeah, we get so caught up in what's happening here, but really for the soul, it's like snap, it's over.
That's it. This is just like a weekend. This is just like a school ground or something like that. And that's exactly what Earth School is. It's Earth School. Here we are in Earth School learning lessons. And the reason we're learning lessons is because of the ultimate destination is to return to, we come from the source as beginner souls. And, okay, just imagine this for a second. If people believe in God and everything else like that. Now, if God is the most perfect person in the world, or the perfect person in the universe, and we all strive to be like God, you see, the reason that God is the most perfect person in the universe, so to speak, or the creator, or whatever you want to call him, is because he knows all the stuff that we're trying to learn. He's all forgiving. He's all unconditional love, etc., etc., etc. So if you were, say, the creator, or whatever you want to call it, and you wanted your offspring, as in we, the human race, if you wanted your offspring to be like you would send them to a school where they would learn the lessons in an effective way. Now, we're not going to learn about love unless we experience hate. Because we have to have the negative emotions before we can understand the positive emotions. And Earth School is the most perfect place to learn all those things. We're not going to learn about judgment until we've been judged. And we're not going to be compassionate until we feel pain.
It kind of it begs the question then of who's got the greater job, the one to endure the pain or the one to give it?
Yeah, well, that's a bit of a question, isn't it? Because let's put it this way: an advanced soul that comes down here, the ones that give pain, as in who, for instance?
Well, some say there's a young child here who the Perth's been very distraught about because the child was killed in a public toilet and what have you, just ghastly, horrible, disgusting, revolting things. Nice family, and that is so hard to kind of to try and put some kind of balance and reason to.
In that situation, now that you've given me that situation, I can understand it. Okay, first of all, you got the perpetrator, the person who did that. And most people would say, what an evil, rotten mongrel, he deserves to burn in hell and blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. And rightfully so. In our world, he does. Okay? Now I'm going to hit real tough ground here, and I hope I don't get any hate mail. But the thing is, that perpetrator was put here as a lesson giver as well. It was not just for the person. Now I know this sounds really tough, but the more advanced souls will have tougher lives. The more advanced souls are the people who are going to come into this life, and they're going to have like all their kids get killed in a fire and very akin to what you're talking about now. They're going to have a horrible death that they have to get over, because something like that to get over would be the hardest to understand, the hardest to forget, the hardest to not seek revenge for, the hardest to forgive, the hardest to ever bounce back from. So you can bet your bottom dollar that the person, the mother and the father of that child, would be very advanced souls. It'd be interesting to see how they survive this life of theirs, if you understand what I mean.
Well, I can already see certain things like the way the community has supported this family.
Absolutely.
Just
that's what I was just about to say. It's not just for the family, it's also for the community. So the community is going to support them, and even though it's never going to bring the child back and it's not going to do anything about the perpetrator, because he's still going to have done the act still exists. It doesn't matter, it's still there. The thing is, there's so many things you've got to look at, I mean, when you start looking at reincarnation and all that type of stuff, and you look at the soul's life, it does get a little bit complicated. To me, it's quite simple, though, because I do understand it. And that perpetrator was put down here to teach not just the parents a lesson, but the family a lesson. Okay, the community, excuse me. The community, and you know the same thing over here, we have the Daniel Morecambe thing.
Yeah.
Now, Daniel Morecambe hasn't been found, as we know. But the thing is, since Daniel Morecambe went missing, like Queensland as a whole is more protective of their children.
Yeah.
Now, I bet you that community where this has happened, everyone's more protective of their children.
Yes.
And so the lesson has been learned.
Yes.
And as horrible as that person was for doing what he did,
Yes.
He has taught the community a lesson as a whole. Do not leave your children unguarded.
So,
Do not forget that your children are the most sacred things to you.
yes.
Because there's always someone out there that isn't quite stable, that isn't quite right. Why do they exist? To teach lessons, to make people understand what is most important in this family. What's most important in this world? It's not your car or your big house, it's your family, it's your kids, it's your loved ones.
Yeah, that's so true.
And that's as terrible as that man is, it's the same as Daniel Morecambe. My son now, he is now 13 years old, and I still won't let him go into the toilet by himself. Not unless I'm standing outside the door waiting.
Yeah.
And my words are, don't talk to anyone, don't speak to anyone, or I will, basically, clip you over the back of the head.
Yeah.
And because of Daniel Morecambe, I have panicked ever since that kid went missing, because I understand how easy it is. He taught me a huge lesson, but in Queensland, where everyone's very, very wary of the Daniel Morecambe situation, and most parents are very wary of even allowing their kids to go into public toilets without protection. We're a bit paranoid over here, but probably rightfully so.
But this going back to the young man who was stabbed, is this what you were able to kind of give to his family, that through this great traumatic event which has befallen your family, these are the things that you can and will expect to learn from it?
Yeah, well, this is with this particular mother now. At the moment, they're still going through courts and everything with that one, and so it's still very, very early days. This is only about 11 months old.
Yeah.
So they're still very early days. So with most of my clients that are early days like that, I'll work with that lady now. I will work with her probably for the next year, maybe 2 years.
So was he actually basically giving you or giving the parents evidence of what happened?
No, they caught the person.
Oh, they already had caught the person.
That's all going to court. That's all signed, sealed, and delivered, all that part.
Oh, okay.
The guy's clearly not guilty, stupidly enough, because he's not going to get off. But there's too much evidence against him. But the thing is, when I work with the parents, I don't ever work in police-type deals, if you know what I mean.
No, yeah.
I just feel like that I'd rather work with the parents of the victims, because I just see my role as more as helping them to deal and eventually find some type of forgiveness within their soul, you know. You're really
committed to healing, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. That's what it's all about. It's not about who can, you know, how good a medium you are. Because, you know, I think that my work, well, it speaks for itself. The medium work's a very small part of what I do, in my opinion.
So tell us about your healing seminar, because I know you've got...
Yeah, I've got a healing retreat coming over here on the East Coast, and the healing retreat's going to be absolutely wonderful. I'm so excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
What I've done is I've got together for a whole week. We've got a place up at Springbrook, which is it's a vegetarian retreat. But anyway, what it is, it's up on the mountains in Springbrook. It's on top of a waterfall, and as everybody gets their own cabin, so it's all type of, everything's catered for, all your food, all your accommodation, everything's counted for. And what we're doing is we're actually doing the whole healing retreat. It's basically for people who are having trouble understanding the whole life-death process. I've got myself going up there, of course, Ezio de Angelis, another medium who is absolutely wonderful, and a fellow I'm very excited about. His name is Peter Smith, and he is a life between life therapist. Now, I don't know if anybody out there's read the book called Destiny of the Soul or Journey of the Soul by Michael Newton. What that book is about is hypnotherapy work where they actually hypnotise you back to your last life, take you to the point of death, and then they talk to your soul in life between lives while you're planning. So basically they take you back to your life between lives, which means they actually talk to your soul when it is in the soul land or whether it's in spirit form. That is really, really exciting, because what you can find out then, and there have been that many documented cases. I mean, you cannot document these cases and get the same theme running over and over and over again, case after case after case, without it being correct, can you?
No, that's right.
And everything, it's some of the subjects, they talk a little differently, or they say things a little differently, but the running theme seems to be that, one, we are all attaining to be like the Creator, and we are all trying to perfect ourselves so that we can return to the source and make the source even stronger. And then eventually we will just be guides ourselves, which I think sounds wonderful. But basically what we do is, after each life, we review our previous life. We understand what mistakes we made. We understand when we need to karmically balance. Then we do that with our guides, and everybody has a guide that we have for basically eternity. You know, it's not just one life we have a guide for. It's always the same guide. Then I think there's a higher guide that we have as well, from what I can work out. Then we have soul groups, and our soul groups are generally people that we have many, many lives with, and that can be like our partners, our brothers, our sisters, our good friends. And then what we do when we're over there in life between lives, we actually, as I said, we review our last life, we meet up with our soul group, and we plan the next life together. Okay? Now, soulmates are not always a lover. Sometimes they're a brother, sometimes they're a sister, sometimes they're a best mate. Sometimes they don't come down to the life with you at all, so that you live without the soulmate, which means you have a life feeling a bit empty, like something's missing, you know? Which is really interesting, you know. Some souls opt to come down. Well, this wouldn't be so much now because it's more open, but like, say, 15, 20 years ago, a lot of souls chose to be reincarnated as gay people, homosexuals, because it was a challenge to be a homosexual, and actually gave them more strength as a soul, which I found really, really interesting. So a lot of men opted to, or a lot of women opted to come down as males, so that they would have a homosexual tendency and to fight the challenges of the homosexual. Some people actually opt to come down as, say, cerebral palsy people and all that type of stuff. To overcome the challenges there, and also to teach the most valuable lessons that you can imagine. So when you're in your soul state, you're actually planning your life with your soul group and your secondary soul group, so to best enable you to learn the lessons you feel you still need to learn.
So you would kind of have like a group meeting and say, well, I really don't think I've got this compassion thing down. So how about if you come back with this, and I'm going to try and be the most compassionate self that I can be. So is that how it happens, Charmaine? Well,
basically, we'll put it this way. I have a friend called Yoel Sawyer. Now, he's a drug therapist, and he's just amazing. I just love him. What he does is he actually does workshops and that, which teach drug addicts who have had a long history on drugs. When they're ready to come off, he gives them a program and a practice that he has designed through traditional Chinese medicine, and he does body works and all that type of stuff. And he gives them a program which they can help, which will effectively take them off drugs and help them stay off drugs, and for the rest of their lives if they follow this practice, right? The book he's put out is called Higher and Higher. Now, I'm actually using him as a subject in one of my books because I always imagine Yoz up in his soul life, and they said, and he was born in the late 50s into Germany. Okay, now it was just interesting that he was born in the late 50s because he was actually born before the drug culture took a hold of the world.
Right.
Okay, and he was born in Germany, and Germany in the late 50s would have still been reeling from the rebellion of the World War II and everything, if you can imagine.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So when he was born in the 70s, he was in his prime, and that was when acid and all the rest of the drugs took a hold and speed started coming in, the heroin started getting big, as you can imagine. And apparently in Germany at that time, it was huge because of the reputation of Germany, all the young people started to rebel and everything else like that, much to the dismay of their parents, as you can imagine. Now, here's young Yoz as a soul. So he says to his guide, he says, well, look, I want to go down, he said, because the drugs are about to take over the world, but I want to be the person that starts to help drug addicts get off in a more effective, pain-free way so that they can actually rehabilitate themselves to make life changes that are going to be forever. And so his guide says, well, what are you going to do, Yoz? How are you going to do that? And he says, I might go down, he says, I might spend 20 years addicted to every single drug I can. I want to be born in Germany because that's going to be a really troubled spot in the 50s. And I'm going to come out, and he says, I'm going to discover through traditional China, I'm going to go back to school, I'm going to study medicine, and eventually I'm going to be worldwide renowned, one of the most worldwide renowned New Age drug practitioners in the world, and he will be too, trust me. He is amazing. And he's not quite there yet, but that's my prediction. Look out for Yoz Sawyer. But when I looked at Yoz's life, and I thought, well, he has tailor-made his life to be one of the most renowned New Age practitioners for drug rehabilitation in the world. One day people will follow what he says. I know they will, because it's the only other way to go. We can't keep fighting drugs with other medications. It's not going to work.
No, well, that makes sense, really, when you think about it just there.
And that's his biggest theory. We can't fight drugs with antidepressants.
No.
Because you're just giving up one to take up another.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
No, it's just swapping one crutch for the other, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's like giving up drinking and taking up speed. That's what I did.
How'd that work out for you, Charmaine?
Hey?
How'd that work out for you?
No, I didn't. but you see, it's the same as myself too, because now I deal with grief, and in a big way. I mean, I have lost every family member you can type of pick one, you know. I've lost them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I understand grief from everything, but Yoz's life I thought was a beautiful example, and he will be well known. His methods, I feel, are going to be farmed out, and I feel that other therapists are going to take over him, and eventually I feel that instead of going up to the drug clinic and doing the drug clinic trade with methadone and whatever, they're going to be sending people to New Age practitioners, because it's been proven that if you give a heroin addict acupuncture and you press the right points at the right time, then what happens is that the points that are blocked will become unblocked and the heroin addict will stop craving heroin.
Wow.
Yep, this is some of his studies and some of his theories, and eventually that is going to be put worldwide. It will be drug-free rehabilitation. You know, I suppose it was a little bit tiny off the track there, but with the Life Between Life therapy guy, I've got him coming up to this retreat for a week. He's going to be there conducting Life Between Life therapy, talking about life between lives, helping people understand that in the healing seminar, I mean, that you don't have to, that God isn't out to get you and the world doesn't hate you when someone dies. I'm hopefully going to have Yoz Sawyer up there himself talking about therapy that people can use to help heal themselves after grief. I've got another renowned medium, Ezio de Angelis, who's coming up to do his thing. He's going to be doing like readings, counselling, and also some shamanic drumming, which I'm looking forward to because I've never done it. Maria Relita, who you know.
I love Maria.
Maria's coming up to kick butt in the last day and get those people out in the world.
She's fantastic. She's full
on, that girl, but she's coming up for the last day. She's going to be, okay, you've got the information, you've got the tools, get out there and do it, people, you know what I mean? So basically, it's a week at a beautiful country resort for people who are dealing with understanding the whole life-death factor, understanding why their kids, mothers, fathers, whoever have gone, and just with some of the best therapists that we've got in Australia, and to heal them. So it's going to be quite wonderful, I think, yeah.
I know.
Every morning, Qigong every morning, and probably 3 meditations a day by different teachers.
Wow, you're really going to pack it in there, aren't you?
Absolutely.
People are going to...
Good food.
It's interesting because I know this is your retreat that you're giving, but one of the reasons why you're able to contribute so much, I think, to your retreats, with your mediumship work and with everything that you know, is because you also are very willing to be the other side, because I know that you went to a silent retreat.
Oh, yeah.
How was that?
Well, that was, that was one of the most, I don't know, there's so many life-changing experiences in my life, but one of the most positive life-changing experiences in my life.
Was it challenging?
Absolutely. Oh, my God, yes.
How long did you have to be silent for?
9 days all up.
Oh.
And day 10 you can finally talk.
Mm.
But actually that wasn't the most challenging thing, because I was ready to be quiet for a while. I was ready to, I call the passionate is what it's called. I call the passionate going into the cave and sorting out yourself. And the first 4 days are spent, because what I didn't realise when I looked at the program was we actually had to meditate for 12 hours a day.
Yowzers.
Don't know how I missed that, but anyway, I did. And I thought, because, we're doing this first meditation, I'm thinking, oh, yes, this is okay. And we've got to meditate again? But what happens is, it's really what the passion of meditation is it teaches you to live in the moment. Anyone who's read Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, the Buddhist, anything by the Dalai Lama, all those books coincide exactly with Vipassana. And what it does, so what happens is for the first 4 days, you're sitting there in meditation pose, or reclining, or leaning up against the wall, or complaining to yourself, whichever you happen to be doing, because you're not allowed to talk at all. And the amount of pain that you go through is really significant.
Wow.
Because you are not used to sitting down for 12 hours in a meditation pose, on the floor, no armchairs.
Jeez.
So the first 4 days I spent thinking, oh my God, by day 4, I actually said to one of the teachers, you're allowed to talk to the teachers, I said, I think I need to go to hospital and have something for pain relief. It was terrible. I couldn't believe it. I could no longer feel my back. And what happens is, up until day 4, what you're supposed to be doing is focusing on the breath going in the nose and out the nose. You try doing that for 4 days.
Yeah.
You think you're going to go mad. And because they knew I was a medium, I was told I was not allowed to communicate with my guides.
Oh.
I was not allowed to go. I was not allowed to let the visions come in, because as a medium we get clairvoyant visions quite constantly. I was not allowed to do anything. I ignored all that.
I was going to say that must be that's a bit like how do you stop a clairvoyant from getting messages? It's like
it's funny. You can.
Oh, okay.
You can, because what happens is, because everybody else is a passioner has closed off as well. Because everybody wants to close off, because everybody wants to make sure they do this thing properly. So I went to the teacher on Sunday, so I think I need to go to the hospital to get some pain medication. I really can't stand this, And she said, it's okay, tomorrow's Vipassana, everything will be all right. And on day 5, what they actually teach you to do is to observe your pain. I know that sounds weird, but what they actually do is teach you to go from in his word, in the top of your head to the tip of your toes. But what you actually have to do is go inch by inch, centimetre by centimetre, from the back of your head to the front of your face, all the way through your body. And instead of actually absorbing yourself into the pain, you just watch the pain. I know that sounds a bit strange, but you don't let yourself feel the pain. You just say, yes, the pain in my back, I would rate a 752.5. And then what happens is, what you're actually taught is everything that rises passes away. Everything that rises passes away. When you go back the next time, you will notice that the pain is no longer in that spot. It has moved. Because it's true, everything moves. Eventually, you don't feel any pain at all, because you're not feeling the pain, you're watching the pain.
So you're disconnected from it.
You disconnect from the pain altogether. So I went through this for day 5 to by day 9 I'd really had enough. I really wanted to go home day 9. I really had enough. And but ever since that time, I came out and my whole attitude has changed. I do very consciously now resort back to observing my breath whenever I feel I'm getting a bit far ahead of myself. But what did happen afterwards was I went into a very deep depression afterwards.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. I couldn't believe it. On day 5, my mum arrived. My mum's in spirit, as you know, and I had blocked my grief from her,
Yeah.
Typical of a medium, typical of someone that deals with grief to do that, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And I blocked my grief from her, and day 5 she turned up. She turned up, and I spent the next 4 days crying. I couldn't believe it, and after I got out, I realised just how insignificant we all really are. You know what I mean? I mean, we're not, but we are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And I started to, and I actually got a bit too much yin, because we have yin and yang energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I went so yin that I could not, I just got to the point where I realised a few things happened around the time my oldest son moved back down to the Redlands closer to his mates, and Mum had gone, and I realised that that I'm alone. This is it. It was a bit of a poor me, poor Diddums,
Mm.
but it was actually a hangover from the Vipassana,
Mm-hmm.
because it really makes you look at your life and see where you are. So then from that time on, I actually started to practice what I preached. And I realised that I was heading for a deep grief, that the grief had become an immovable ball in my stomach.
Yes.
And what I actually did was, and I heard a little voice in my head, I think it was my mother, and she said, exercise. So I joined a gym.
Oh, good on you.
Yeah. I haven't felt better. I actually practice what I preach. I'm still doing as much deep breathing, meditation as I can, and I'm doing the gym, so I'm balancing my yin and yang out. And I feel absolutely wonderful now, to be honest. A bit too much gym some days, but hey, I'll get over that. But that's what I'm doing. But the Vipassana, I would not recommend it to anyone who wasn't ready to face themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is for people who are ready to face themselves. Because you have to be prepared that you may not like what you see.
Well, I love that about you, that the fact that, like I said before, the reason why you're such a good teacher is because you're so willing to be a student as well.
Oh, yeah.
And everything that you've learnt from that, you've now able to take on and again teach at your healing retreat. And and as you say, you followed your own advice, and you're again a living example of how it works.
Absolutely. And you've just got I don't recommend anything I wouldn't try myself.
No, that's right. Yeah.
And that's a passion. I will do it again. I mean that. I will do it again.
Mm.
When I want to go to the cave again, and when I've got my back strong. I'll do some back exercises before I go next time, because I think it's an absolute wonderful place to reassess yourself.
Yeah, well, it would be, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Oh, it's heavy stuff. It really, it's quite amazing. You would never have thought that life was so simple until you went there.
Well, good on you for doing that journey. That sounds extraordinary.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. And that's one up for Vipassana. Vipassana likes people to advertise them, but honestly, only go there if you're ready to face yourself, and only go there if don't worry about the back thing. Just persevere with the pain for 4 days. It's very minimum pain to what you get out of it. What the pain you feel in those first 4 days is. It's a spot compared to what you are going to gain from it in the long run.
Yeah, and that's the. Now, tell us about this book. How are we ready for Charmaine's book?
The thing with the book is, I did my first book, which I self-published, which was called Spirit Whispers, and I sent that off to a company, Allen and Unwin, and they were very excited about Spirit Whispers, but they wanted something that was a bit more teaching. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I did what I thought was teaching. They sent it back, and they said, "Yeah, we like it, but." And then all of a sudden, they sent it back to me, like, around the whole Vipassana deal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I realised that all I had to teach was everything I've been taught.
Yes.
All I had to write about was everything I've been taught by my guides.
Yeah.
And this book has turned into this, I think it's going to be a wonderful... It's got my life story and how I became a medium, how I maintain my mediumship and all that type of stuff. It's got the type of basic stuff there, but it's also got a lot of stuff about the whole life journey and everything else. I'm very excited about it. I've only got about 3 chapters to complete, and I send it back again, and I suppose we have to have the second edit. Mm. But I'm very excited about it, because the more I write, the easier it gets to write, and I understand I'm writing it's something that hasn't been written before. It's all the knowledge I've accumulated, and I've tried to put it into the one book. As my editor said, she says, I said, I was going to put that in another book. She says, put it all in this book, because she says, you've got more books in you, And she's right. And because my whole thing is to help people deal with grief, and this is what this book turned into. It's my own journey from grief to mediumship, and then how you too can go from grief to actually living and listening and hearing, well, not hearing, but living with your people who are in spirit, living with them in spirit. That's what the whole journey is about. Like, you don't have to say goodbye. You just have to learn to accept them in a different form, and basically you're going to meet again, and that's what the whole book's about. Don't give up. This is just part of your lessons, and you organise them in the first place. So
So do you think this year, or are we looking early next year?
Definitely. Well, it'll be finished. I will have it finished by the end of September because I've put that goal on it, probably before then.
Right.
And then it goes back. We do the next edit, and it comes back out, and then hopefully we won't have too much more to do then. I've noticed I put too many that's, the word that, in there.
Do you have a working title?
I think they're taking my first book off the shelves. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to be calling it Spirit Whispers again.
Oh, that's okay. That ties in with your webpage, which, by the way, is spiritwhispers.org.
That's the one.
Charmaine, we're almost out of time, so I just wanted to give everybody a wrap-up again of what you're doing. You're going to New Zealand on the 23rd and 24th of August.
I am indeed. Nothing on the West Coast as yet. I'm doing a lot of local shows over here in Ipswich.
You like those, don't you? You like to get out to the rural people and let them know.
Oh, yeah, I do. It's a bit of a financial expedition, as any other medium will tell you. But I'm hoping to get back out to regional next year in 2008. But this year I'm doing just the local areas around Brisbane. I'm doing 3 local areas around here, Caboolture, Ipswich and Willow Point. And then I'm going to Sydney. I'm back in Canley Heights for the Canley Heights people. I'm off down to Tassie for a quick trip in October, which I'm excited about. Devonport and Launceston only, because Hobart's too hard to deal with. Sorry, Hobartians. But, yeah, they don't cooperate much down there.
Oh, bugger.
No, it's painful, really. But, yeah, and where else am I going? I think that's about it. I focus a lot on the Brisbane shows this year. I'm doing a lot of cheap shows in Brisbane, so people can just keep coming and getting connected. It keeps me in the loop of shows as well, so until we go back to regional next year, which I'll probably do a 3-month tour in the middle of the year, I think. You
work very hard.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have to, because there's a lot of people who... like my waiting list at the moment, it's probably about 9 months long at the moment.
Yeah.
And unfortunately it is. But, there's so much you've got to do in between time. And if you just did readings day in, day out, you'd go insane.
Yeah.
I think you would. So I only work so many readings per week. I think at the moment I'm working 16 readings per week. And I don't do that every week, not when I've got shows.
Yeah.
But the shows, why I always will and always have loved the shows, is because it's healing on a big... like when you do a reading, you can heal the person you're reading and their family members who they go and tell.
Yeah.
When you do a show, you don't actually extend the healing just to the person you're reading. They go and tell their family. Everyone standing around gets a little bit as well. Something funny happened to me at the show at Ipswich just recently. There's this young little fellow who came through, absolutely gorgeous kid. He died from cancer. I picked up that he died from cancer. His name was Connor. I got everything absolutely beautifully. He was one of the most lovely communicators I've ever had. And I've never noticed before, because I never really tried to focus on anyone but the person I'm reading. And I looked up, and 3/4 of the room had tissues out.
Oh.
I thought, oh my God! I said to my PA, I said, dude, I can't believe it. 3/4 of the room was crying. She said, oh, with one of them, I was handing tissues out everywhere, because I didn't. As a medium, you just don't notice what's going on.
Yeah.
The messages, and then they were all crying. I've never noticed it before, but anyway, there you go. Apparently it happens a lot, but I don't see it, but yeah.
Well, I would understand that, because it's like if you're talking to, say, somebody in the third row who hadn't healed with their father before their father passed and they're feeling a lot of guilt, but there's 10 other people in the room with the exact same scenario, you're talking to them as well.
Yeah, and you're talking to them, and actually, when you get a very, very strong healing reading like that, you can feel it. I mean, you don't have to be a medium to feel the healing. You can see that woman or man or whoever changing before your very eyes, and it's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal to see that. It's phenomenal to see as from a medium's point of view, and to watch when I watch other mediums work, and you can see that healing melt that person away. You go, wow.
Yeah.
That's just wonderful stuff. That's what it's all about.
Well, if you want the chance to see Charmaine Wilson, and I absolutely thoroughly recommend that you do. This is from a very personal endorsement where my family members have had readings and they have been spot on. And I can personally endorse Charmaine Wilson for what that's worth. Get along to her website, which is spiritwhispers.org, and you'll under the seminars and events, you will see the calendar of where you can go to see Charmaine either in a live seminar event or get along to one of her retreats and have something a bit more personal. Thank you so much for being our guest, Charmaine.
That's okay, Leah. Thank you for having me once again.
Speak to you next time.
Okay.
Okay, that's Underworld for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe and blessings to you all.
You've been listening to Australia's own Underworld Show with host Lia Ramses. The Underworld Show is produced in Perth, Western Australia by iProdigy Communications exclusively for Ghost Radio Australia and the Ghost Radio Network. Tune in every Sunday at 8 p.m. Perth time to hear fascinating guests and topics such as the one you just listened to. For more information on upcoming guests, events, and breaking news, visit www.underworldshow.com or www.ghostradio.com.au.